We've all had it. Non-stop mask fogging. Like, what the fog, man? It's an absolute nuisance. It gets in the way of all of our dives. So what can we do to prevent mask fog without us continually having to flood our mask and swish water around and clear it throughout the dive? Hey guys, you're with me, Kevin, your scuba professional. And with over 2 decades of dive experience, I have tried every single way you can think of to defog and clear a mask. And today I'm going to go through 6 of the best ways that I've found to get the fog out of the mask so we can enjoy our dives. 5 of them are really cool, and one of them is quite possibly the weirdest way you've ever heard of. But what exactly is mask fog, and what causes it in the first place? Before we can get into the clearing of masks, we've got to take a step back and define exactly what causes your masks to fog. Scuba masks fog up due to the moisture, which creates a condensation layer on the inside of the mask. This happens as you descend down when the water temperature on the outside of the lens is colder than the warmer section of the mask inside. It creates condensation, and any moisture which is coming off your face or out of your nose, from your eyes, that can create condensation inside the mask. So it's almost like when you've got a cold beverage with you, when you throw lots of ice on it on a super hot day, it starts to form those little droplets of water on the outside of the glass. The same thing happens with your mask, but from the inside, with the ocean or outside water being cooler and the inside of the mask being warmer, which causes those droplets to form. And the main contributing factor to the amount of condensation that you get inside of a mask is temperature differential. So the greater the difference in temperature, the greater the chance of you getting condensation inside the mask. So if you were diving in areas like Cape Town where the waters are quite frigid, but the air temperature outside can still be quite warm, you would have a good chance of having condensation on the inside of the mask, which would cause it to fog. Top tip from me, guys, to reduce the effect of this temperature difference. At the beginning of your dive, as you roll off the back of the boat or just before you're about to enter the water, the best thing to do is take your mask off your face, dunk your face into the water and swish it around, and put the mask in the water as well. This will greatly cool down the temperature of your face as well as the mask. So when you pop it back on, if you descend immediately thereafter, there's not as big a temperature difference between your face and the water outside, which will greatly reduce the effect of the fogging while you're underwater. Besides temperature difference, the other factors that contribute to mask fog are moisture as well as residues and oils on the lenses itself. So when you're out diving, when the mask's in your face, if it doesn't fit properly and you're breathing out through your lungs the entire time into the mask from your nose, that's what creates all the fogging problems that you're going to have. So make sure that you've got a really good fitting mask so you don't have to keep breathing out the whole time. The other factor we mentioned was oils and residues. During the manufacturing and tooling process, the manufacturers will often put a film over the lens to protect it from scratching, or it may be sprayed with silicones and oils as it goes through the assembly machines. And these oils and residues sit on the mask and one of the main contributing factors towards mask fog. So now let's get into how we clear this off. For any diver making use of the cheap hacks or the diver related hacks that you may have in your dive travel bag, may do a relatively good job at defogging the mask, but you may unwittingly be damaging the coral environment. Quite often, a lot of these kinds of chemicals that you've got readily available to defog are not reef safe. So you could be damaging the reef without even knowing about it. To prep a scuba mask using the toothpaste method for first time use, the best thing to do is take 1 pea-sized blob and put it on each lens. So just pop a blob, and then you give it a really good rub the whole way around. You can get your finger in there, ideally with your thumb, so you can give it a good hard rub just to get any of those oils or silicones off the lens itself. If it's one of those masks that has a protective film, you've got to give it a really proper rub. You may have to repeat this process 3 or 4 times. You can see as I'm rubbing it around, I'm getting into every nook and cranny within this mask, and I'll give it a rub for 2-3 minutes, like non-stop, just to make sure that we get it in there properly. And then I'll even leave it for 4 or 5 minutes while the toothpaste even dries up a little bit, so the chemicals can actually work their magic to eat away at the oils that are on the inside of the mask. Rub-a-dub-dub, there's a fish in my tub. All divers, when they're away on tour, always have their bath time essentials, the bubble baths, the body washes, the soaps and the shampoos. And these do work really well as far as defogging masks are concerned. But just be super careful. The likes of your suddy suds for your bubble bath and your hand washes and your soaps specifically, if you rub this onto the mask itself, if you get any water into the mask and you get a little soap bubble, it's going to burn like hell. So very popular among divers is the use of No Tears baby shampoo. You take a little dollop pea-size, rub it onto the mask, and then take that out for the dive. We all know that there's nothing better than a sunset post-dive bonfire to warm you up after the dive. But just as much fun as the post-dive bonfire is, if you're running around having a few beers, you know you've got to be super careful around any flames. We all know the boys that play with fire are going to wet their bed. So if you are going to choose this method to defog your mask, you have to be super careful. We're going to dive right in and I'll show you how to burn the mask to remove those oils and silicones. It's just super important. If you're doing it, if you're using your traditional lighter, it becomes super difficult because you've got to light it and then get your hand right up into that mask, and this part of the lighter gets super hot, which can burn your fingers. The other thing you need to watch is divers are often quite tempted to move that further away from the lens, which creates that very sharp tip of flame. And if you get very close or get the lens close to that tip of flame, it'll crack and shatter the mask. And if that tip of flame touches the silicone of the skirt, it's just going to melt straight through it. So if you are going to choose this method, we recommend getting a lighter which has got an extension spout with these little tips on them, so you can get that right up into the mask, so the flame is literally just off the lens itself. So instead of creating the tip, it just fans out like a Bunsen burner, so you get a much more even distribution of flame around the mask, and you'll get to see that start to eat away at the oils on the mask itself. So let's have a look. When prepping the mask for burning, it's always best to ensure that you don't leave the flame touching one specific part of the lens for more than a few seconds. You need to consistently move it around, and you'll start to see how the silicone just pulls away from the mask. So we're going to go in there now, and I'm going to start the burn. You see I start to move it away and move it around, and you can see how the silicone very quickly and all the oils just pull themselves away from the lens itself. So there's our indication that this method is working, and every few seconds I take it away. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and a last little section of this. You see that is now pulled all that silicone and oil away from that section of the mask itself. And if I wanted to, I could get right in there, but you need to be really, really careful in those areas, because that's when it touches the skirt of the mask itself, and that's what can give you the issues. So from here you can just give it a rinse out, but your main field division is going to be 100% there. You could finish those little corners off very carefully with the lighter, or you could use your mask scrubs or some toothpaste to get right into that section. To spit or not to spit? That is the question. Nah, that's pretty gross. And to be honest, it freaks me out when I see divers do that on the boat. I've often heard people say, the greener the cleaner, as they go and huck one out and rub it into their lens, and it's just not cool for me or anyone else which is on the boat for that matter. In a pinch, does it work? Yeah, it could, because it's going to put a thin film between the lens and anything else which is going to cause the fogging. The more cultured among us will lick their fingers and then rub it on the mask. Admittedly, yes, it does help, but I have heard of some divers that wind up with eye infections from doing this, because saliva is not the cleanest thing, depending on what you've eaten before when you go on the dive. To have that hanging really close to your eyes, there's a good chance that you can get an eye infection. So, to spit or not to spit, I'll leave it with you, but personally, I'm not so into that. Okay, if you're not into any of the before-mentioned methods in this video, the good news is there's a whole bunch of herbal and natural ways to ensure your mask stays defogged. So if you're more into the ebb and flow and esoteric way of the universe, we've got you covered too. So I'm sure you've all been down at the beach where you've managed to get a jellyfish sting or be hammered by one of those blue bottles. The local herbalists and local people are really quick to run up the sand dunes and run back with some plants with muties and potions to get rid of that burn. And it is known that if you rub some of the gel from certain aloes on the inside of your mask, this too works really well as a defog when you're out in the ocean. The downside to that, however, is we can't have hundreds of divers running up the dunes every single day to snap off parts of aloe to rub on the insides of their masks. I mean, we're not into that. The weirdest way I've ever heard about defogging your mask is actually 100% organic, readily available, super cheap, and one of the easiest things to do. And best of all, you can eat it afterwards. So boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. You guessed it, it's the humble potato. Potatoes, as mad as it sounds, work really well for defogging the mask. You literally just take your knife and a little slip of potato, well, just take a little bit off there. You can rub your finger onto the juice and just give that a rub around the mask itself, and you'll be super surprised how well this works to defog your mask. And best of all, you can bring it back to the lodge that night where you can stick it in your stew for a hearty, warming dinner. There really is no question. If you want to ensure your mask is fog-free for your entire dive, then the best option is a commercially made defog. These defogs are made specifically for the purpose of keeping your mask fog-free. Further to that, they are reef safe, so you don't have to worry about damaging the environment, and they are not going to irritate your eyes because they have to undergo stringent testing to make sure that they tick all those boxes before they go out and sell to us. My personal favorite is SeaGold, and it's called SeaGold for a reason, because it really is like scuba gold. If you get a bottle of this, it will last a really long time because you literally have to put a blob half the size of a pea on your finger and rub that into each lens and just leave it there. When you get out to the dive site, just a quick dunk of the mask into the ocean, pop it on your face and go for the dive, and you're sure to be completely fog-free. So I have a question for you. Besides the dastardly mask fog, what is the most irritating thing that you experience consistently on a dive? My past experience has shown that the thing that irritates divers the most is actually the easiest to fix. With a few simple little fitting tricks and tips, we can get it all solved for you. So why not check out this video over here where we delve into how to solve this little irritation.